to the program. He is the former mayor of the city of San Diego. He is also a candidate for governor in the recall election, where we're going to be voting this fall. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Faulconer and get him online at kevinfaulconer.com. Mayor Kevin Faulconer, welcome.
John, it's great to be back with you. Thank you.
I was on vacation last week. I did a cruise out of the Bahamas and spent a day in Miami before I flew back to California. And as someone who likes to travel and likes to see different parts of the world, as a lifelong Californian, I always look forward to coming home. I like flying into LAX, going to In-N-Out on Sepulveda, getting an In-N-Out hamburger, and being home. I can't tell you the difference between Miami and Los Angeles from Saturday to Sunday. In Miami, the restaurants were open and packed. The bars were open and packed. People were on the beaches. People were spending money. Tourists were there from all over the globe. There was an energy. It was almost this frenetic sort of place where stuff was going on. I get on the plane. I come to Los Angeles, and it's like a zombie apocalypse movie. The first thing you see when you drive out of LAX is you see homeless people and encampments all over the place, and it never ends. You see trash littering the sides of the freeways, the sides of the roads, to the point where it looks like landfill. I was meeting friends for lunch. We had to go to restaurant number 5 because the first 4 were closed. You drive by these strip malls and you see vacancies all over the place. It was almost like the town was dead and there wasn't anything going on. What happened?
Well, what you just described was the results of failed leadership from Gavin Newsom, and the fact that, he shut down our state for far too long, did not follow science, and particularly on something that I feel very passionately and strongly about. Homelessness is skyrocketing out of control in our great state. And while you were gone, I as you know, I unveiled a plan based upon the successful model that we did in San Diego. I did not allow tent encampments on the sidewalk in San Diego. We took a very firm yet compassionate approach. And so this is a plan that works, where we actually reduced homelessness by double digits. But I'll tell you, you can throw all the money in the world at this. If you don't have the political will to make a difference on the streets, it's not going to change. And so I am going to lead by example as governor. We are not going to see what we see when you drive through the great city of Los Angeles right now, where virtually every single freeway overpass and underpass has tent encampments, graffiti everywhere. That's not the Los Angeles that all of us know. It's not right. It's wrong. You need to have somebody who's going to stand up and say so. But more so than that, somebody who's actually going to take action to change it. And that's fundamentally, I think, what this election is going to be about.
Generally speaking, I believe that if you go to the most local level possible, they usually have the best answers because they know what's going on in their city. They know what's going on in their community better than anyone else, certainly better than people in Sacramento. You come from local government. You were on the city council in San Diego. You were mayor of San Diego, 2-term mayor of San Diego at that. Yet it seems like in Los Angeles County, at the county level, the city level, whatever the case may be, their answer to the homeless problem is to spend more money on housing. And in Los Angeles, when you're talking about spending money on housing, you're talking about very expensive housing, some of that costs $750,000 a unit. The problem is not a lack of housing. When people lose their job, when people fall on hard times, they move into mom's house. They live in a converted garage. They have 2 or 3 families per apartment. They're not living on the street. When you're living on the street, you have other issues going on, whether it's addiction or mental illness, whatever it is, it's a problem independent of your bank account. Yet they refuse to acknowledge that, and they double and they triple down on the housing answer, and we're spending money, we're wasting money on a service that we don't need, and we're not addressing the actual problem. How are we going to change that? Is that going to have to come from Sacramento?
Well, it's going to have to come from a governor who, first and foremost, will admit that there's a problem. This governor doesn't. And again, what we see is a bunch of rhetoric. I'll throw some more money at the issue and not actually do anything. And so I was tired of all of those excuses. I was tired while I was mayor of folks that say, oh, it's housing first and all the other stuff that you hear from these activists. I knew that I needed to make a difference on the streets of San Diego, and we needed to make that difference now. Why? Because if you allow people to live in a tent encampment in an unsafe, unclean, unsanitary environment, they're going to die there. And we're better than that as Californians. And so the shelters that I set up had all of the services that you actually need, to your point. They had mental health, substance abuse, job training, all of the others. But I said, when we put up those shelters, you have to use them. You cannot live in a tent in front of somebody's house or in front of somebody's business. So we made that stand. And guess what? It worked. And yes, I got a lot of pushback at the beginning. And when folks saw the difference, when they saw people getting help, when they saw our city getting cleaned up, they supported it. And this is all across the political spectrum. This is what I think is just common sense. But if you keep on enabling the status quo, you're going to get what we have in California, which is a complete and utter failure. And we see it every day in too many of our great cities. You have to have a governor who is going to say, it's not okay, we need to make a change, and a governor that's not afraid to actually do that.
There's another subject that's been screwing up California of late. That's defunding the police. In Los Angeles County, the LA County Board of Supervisors voted repeatedly to do that. They've been at war with the sheriff, who's one of the only local elected officials who seems to be looking out for us. At the city level, the city council and the mayor did the same thing to the LAPD. The county sheriff, Alex Villanueva, who, by the way, is a Democrat, an elected Democrat, said he cannot guarantee the safety to the people of Los Angeles County, and because of that, he's going to fast-track concealed carry permits to people who want a gun to protect themselves, because if they call 911, help may not be on the way. What can Sacramento, if elected governor, what can you do to push back on this defunding of the police?
Well, I've already started, and in fact, while I was mayor last year, I had hundreds of protesters out in front of my house, nights on end, yelling at me and my family and calling every name of the book, defund the police. I did not defund the police in San Diego. I increased the budget by 7%, and I increased that budget because if we want the best and brightest men and women to wear the badge that are out there protecting us, we better darn well give them the tools, the resources, and the training necessary to be successful. And what has Gavin Newsom done? He's enabled the defund the police movement, and he does it time and time again. It's wrong. I knew as mayor that if you don't have a safe city, you don't have anything. Will know that as governor. And so it starts with leadership at the top. And guess what all these cities are doing that came out and actually defunded their police? They're adding money back into the budget now. Of course they are, because it doesn't work. Because when you call 911, we need to have men and women that actually come on, show up to your house. And so this whole defund the police movement is an utter failure. It's wrong on every level. It doesn't make sense. And you have to have a governor, again, that's going to actually take a stand and say, that's not who we are as Californians.
At the state level, Warden Newsom has had any number of opportunities to make appointments. We've had lots of vacancies. Kamala Harris was elected to be vice president. Alex Padilla was bumped up to the U.S. Senate, so that created a vacancy in the Secretary of State's office. We had a vacancy in the Attorney General's office. And Newsom appointed a George Soros acolyte to that position, Rob Bonta, a former assemblyman from Oakland. Having a George Gascon type or a Chesa Boudin type in that office of the California Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice in this state, how big of a problem is that going to be for public safety?
Well, it is a huge problem because guess what? Victims have rights by double digits. And again, we need to have a governor and an administration, to your point, that understands that that's a problem. And when you're electing a governor, not just electing the individual, you have that ability, obviously, to bring in men and women in the administration. They're going to fight for the reforms and changes that one-party rule has not been working for our state. And so I understand how incredibly important that is. I had to do that as mayor. When I had to appoint our police chief, and I said, I'm going to have an individual that understands that it's always going to be safety first and protecting our neighborhoods, and stand up to the activist type that have no idea what they're talking about. And so I think that's going to be a fundamental shift in my administration versus what you were seeing on Gavin Newsom, which is go along to get along with the far left progressives who, and what we're seeing with that policy is the failure on our streets day in and day out. And that's why I so firmly believe that this recall is going to be successful, that you're going to have Democrats, independents, and Republicans, all who understand we have to have a safe state, all who understand we have to get 10 encampments off our sidewalk, and all who understand we better have a governor that's going to fight to make our state more affordable and livable, because if we don't, what we're going to continue to see is people vote with their feet and leave because our state is too expensive and it's not livable.
It's 110 degrees where I am right now. It's hot in various parts of the state of California. Earlier in Governor Newsom's term, we saw an entire town of people, Paradise, California, burned alive. We know how the fires are being started, outside of the gender reveal parties, in California. They typically come from faulty equipment belonging to PG&E and Southern California Edison. By the way, PG&E was held criminally liable for fires that they started because of their faulty equipment, and then the legislature turned around and tried to put together a bailout for them. Why they did that, I'll never know. But fires also are started from homeless encampments. We've seen that happen all over the county of Los Angeles. The fire department is screaming and yelling, saying, you have to do something about this or more fires are going to start popping up. And he's also dropped the ball with forest management. People are worried that this is going to be a nasty, nasty, nasty fire season. Is this something that Sacramento can push the ball forward on if there's actual leadership?
The answer is yes, and we have to. This is a life or death issue, literally. And we need to be on a war footing and treat it like that. And the fact that, as we saw where this governor got called out, and rightfully so, for misleading the public a couple of weeks ago on the amount of acres that were treated on forest and prevention. We also saw that he cut funding from CAL FIRE. That's just completely irresponsible. It's treated less than forest management than his predecessor did. And so, yes, it's a huge issue. This is why we have to treat it as the emergency that it is. And when folks come out and say, oh, well, we can't do this because of environmental regulations. No, we can, because lives are at stake. And that's what leadership is about. And what we have seen is Governor Newsom has attached himself again to this far left wing that doesn't want to see any forest management, is not going to take the steps to protect people, property, and lives. I'm going to change that. I did not, and you made a very good point, by the way, also on homeless encampments in our canyons, in our urban areas. Besides not allowing 10 encampments on our streets and sidewalks in San Diego, I sent out teams to our riverbeds and our canyons for that very reason. Because particularly when we are in summer and hot weather and east winds, a campfire left unattended at night or during the day in hot can be disastrous in a matter of minutes. And again, when I said we're not going to allow this in the canyons of San Diego, and people, when they actually thought about it, they said, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That's the type of attitude and approach that we need to take statewide, again, because it's not okay to let somebody live and die in an unclean, unsafe, unsanitary environment and then start a fire that can literally devastate a city.
California is also in the middle of another drought, but we've got the Delta smelt. No water, but the Delta smelt. And people have been calling me, emailing me, worried that Governor Newsom is going to kill our lawns again this summer, like what happened before in the past. Do you believe that we're going to have water rationing this summer and we're going to be forced to give up our lawns?
Well, I think because of the governor's failed leadership, that is absolutely something that I think that they're considering. And what they're not considering is what they should be doing, which is actually increasing our ability for additional water storage and capacity. They won't move forward on any of this, again, because of supposed environmentalists. That just totally does not recognize where we are in California. And by the way, not only for our lawns, but for particularly in the Central Valley, which we are the breadbasket of agriculture, not just for our state, but for the entire country. And to see the reduction in supplies that our farmers are getting in California makes no sense at all. We're the greatest state in terms of innovation, but it's not coming from this governor when it comes to actually solving the problems that are entirely solvable. And I think if there's one ingredient that cuts across all the things that we've been talking about today, you have to have the political will to stand up and actually do the right thing. And on all of these issues, what we see is Newsom gets up and gives you a bunch of rhetoric. He gives you a bunch of word salad for a half hour and 45 minutes. And then at the end of that, you're not even clear what he said. It's not about rhetoric. It's about action. And I think that's why 2 million Californians signed this recall and said it's enough of this BS.
Of late, he seems to be bragging a lot about the budget surplus, talking about how Sacramento is flush with cash, there aren't going to be any cuts coming to California, the California comeback, we're going to be roaring back. Yet, that makes it into the headline. When you dig into the details, much of our alleged surplus is in the form or comes to us because of loans from the federal government that has to be paid back. I'm sure his assumption is the Biden administration won't be sending collection officers to California anytime soon, and we can just pretend like that money is ours and it's not a loan that needs to be paid back. Is the budget surplus real, or is he trying to pull a fast one on us with smoke and mirrors?
Well, he's always trying to pull a fast one on us because he doesn't think that people are paying attention. And I think what's also true is that Californians are taxed too much. And the proof of that is that people are voting with their feet. They're leaving. They're leaving California to states that are more affordable. And that's one of the reasons why I've come out with the largest middle-class tax cut, repeat cut, in California history. Because if we don't do that, people are going to continue to vote with their feet. They're leaving. For the first time, as you know, we lost population in California this year. We lost a congressional seat. And we have a governor that doesn't seem to think that that's a problem. And so rather than what we continue to see from Sacramento every cycle, which is they want Californians to send more money to Sacramento, I've said, no, it's quite the opposite. We need to let Californians keep more of the money that they've earned. And that is why I think, again, why folks are saying enough is enough. It's just too expensive in California, and that's why they need a change at the top.
Kevin Faulconer, former mayor of San Diego, candidate for governor in the recall election. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Faulconer. Thank you so much for stopping by. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you, John. My pleasure.